The things that you have in your heart that you think are impossible are often just milestones waiting to get accomplished if you can push those limits. Everything was impossible until somebody else did it. So you can either hang around people that tell you it can be done, or hang around those that inspire possibilities. Welcome to the Inspiring Possibilities Podcast. Weekly interviews with entrepreneurs, artists, those that inspire possibilities. And I'm your host, Julian Marion. All right. I love this intro. It just gets you going. It gets you going. I can literally listen to that music, that instrumental. It's actually my 12-year-old, soon to be 13-year-old Liam, that made it. And so just, love to use what my boys make. So this episode is very different, I think, than all the other episodes I've done. I've done a lot of interviews, but lately started to go more into kind of that format of one-to-one. So my voice to your ears, but we still have quite a few interviews that are going to populate. But anyway, so for this one, we're talking about embracing healthy masculinity and redefining what it means to be a man. If you ever looked at my last post on Instagram, talked about thanks Dad for raising me so I can raise my son, right? So a son raising his son so he can raise his sons, and that there was that although my dad did a great job, my mom did a great job, there's still gaps that I had, as I became older and became a father. So in this episode, in the next two episodes, actually, because I'm probably going to break this down into two parts, just because I feel like there's so much, and we have to kind of digest the information. We're going to talk about the importance of healthy masculinity and how it can promote positive attitudes and behaviors amongst men. Right? We're going to discuss the negative effect of toxic masculinity, which include, the impact on mental health, relationship, and society as a whole, and highlight the benefits of healthy masculinity, such as promoting emotional intelligence, empathy, and respect for diversity. I'm also going to provide some practical strategies and recommendations for fostering healthy masculinity, including education, awareness, and, redefining traditional gender roles. So join me as we explore the importance of healthy masculinity and call to action for promoting positive and empowering versions of what it means to be a man. So let's get to it. So I think the very first thing is, and again, if you didn't know, I have 4 boys. I have 6 kids, 4 boys. So for me, this topic of kind of redefining what it means to be a man, is very important, because I'm trying to obviously, fill the gaps that I had as a boy developing to a man, and and so that's an important one. So anyway, let's get to it. So defining what healthy masculinity is, right? So healthy masculinity would mean a set of positive, non-toxic traits, behaviors, and attitudes that are traditionally associated with masculinity, such as strength, courage, self-reliance, and resilience, right? So healthy masculinity involves a balance between assertiveness and empathy, and promote healthy relationship, emotional intelligence, and respect for diversity. So it's a way of being, a man that does not rely on dominance, aggression, or violence, right? Instead of emphasizing those values such as integrity, kindness, and accountability, right? So this is what the kind of like that definition of healthy masculinity. So when I talk about embracing healthy masculinity, that's what I mean, right? Where we start to put more, more emphasis also on values such as integrity, kindness, and accountability, and start to move away a little bit from the one that we used to be, they used to be used to define masculinity, like dominance, aggression, violence, right? Hunt to kill, right? That kind of mentality. So you might ask yourself, so, okay, cool, Julian, but why? Like, what is the importance of discussing, masculinity and, healthy masculinity versus toxic masculinity? That's a hard word to say. Masculinity, Okay, masculinity. Okay, here we go. So, importance of discussing toxic masculinity, right? So, I think toxic masculinity is crucial for creating a more equitable and healthy society, right? So, like, toxic masculinity refers to harmful behaviors, attitudes, and belief that kind of associate with traditional notion of masculinity, right? Like I said earlier, such as like aggression, dominance, emotional suppression, which means like I have my emotions there, but I'm not sharing them because I might be viewed as weak, right? So these toxic behaviors can lead to like harmful consequences, right? Including gender-based violence, mental health issues. That 1 out of 5 men suffer from severe anxiety and depression, right? Like 1 out of 5, like that's a big amount, right? Um, and the lack of emotional intelligence, right? And all that by acknowledging and addressing toxic masculinity. So if we don't address it, then we're not going to know what it is. We have to kind of like being able to see it. So by acknowledging and addressing toxic masculinity, we can work towards creating a more inclusive and respectful society that value diversity and promotes healthy relationships, right? Plus, discussing toxic masculinity can help men develop a healthier and more balanced sense of masculinity, right? Like one that is not based on harmful stereotype or oppressive behaviors, but instead promoting healthy masculinity, we can create a more positive and empowering vision of what it means to be a man, one that benefits both men and the world that we live in, and obviously being able to raise our kids, right? Did you know that um, I think that was a survey back in 2018 that said that 1 out of 3 kids under the age of 18 doesn't have a dad in their home, right? And I think that comes from this toxic masculinity, right? Of the men that feel he needs to be, more of like, aggressive and suppress his emotion, just protect your family, bring the money, right? And that's what it means to be a man, right? Versus that side of it that is more about kindness, integrity, accountability, right? Strength, courage, right? Emotional intelligence, like those. So we're redefining, what it means to be a man, um, as we're raising this next generation, right, of men. All right, so let's keep moving. So the purpose of this episode is, to explore the concept of toxic masculinity and highlight the importance of promoting healthy masculinity. We're going to examine the negative consequences of toxic masculinity, including the impact on mental health. Remember, 1 out of 5 guys or men suffer from severe anxiety and depression. A relationship. Remember, in the house, 1 out of 3 kid under the age of 18 does not have a dad at home, and society as a whole. Plus, we're going to look at the benefits of healthy masculinity and its role on promoting a more equitable and inclusive society. And we're going to go and provide some practical strategies and recommendation to, how to raise our sons to be healthy men and not toxic men, right? By showing them this model of what it means to be a man, by redefining what it means to be a man. All right, so just like we did the definition of healthy men, um, it's probably good to understand what toxic masculinity, right? What does it mean? What is the definition of toxic masculinity? So toxic masculinity will be referred to as a set of attitudes, behavior, and belief that promotes harmful and negative stereotypes of what it means to be a man. So these stereotypes often can involve traits such as aggression, dominance, emotional suppression, which can lead to harmful consequences for both men and women. Toxic masculinity encourages men to be aggressive, competitive, and unemotional, and can lead to harmful behaviors such as violence and harassment. So, what are some examples of toxic masculinity? 1, aggression and violence, right? Toxic masculinity often promotes aggression and violence as a way to assert dominance and power, right? Like this can manifest in behaviors such as physical violence, verbal abuse, or bullying. Two, emotional suppression, right? So toxic masculinity often discourages men from expressing their emotions, leading to a lack of emotional intelligence and inability to connect with others on an emotional level. Three, hyper masculinity. So toxic masculinity often promotes hyper masculine behaviors and traits such as excessive competitiveness, risk taking, and a focus on physical strength and toughness. For objectification of women. So toxic masculinity often perpetuates this harmful gender stereotype and encourages men to view women as an object for their own pleasure and gratification. Like womanizer, rather than as equal partners in a relationship. So these are just like a few examples of like toxic masculinity, and you know it's important. It's important to note that toxic masculinity can manifest in a lot of different ways in different contexts, right? Um, so now we kind of have that definition and the view of what toxic masculinity is. So I guess the other one is like to look at the effect. Like, what are the effect of toxic masculinity? First one is obviously mental health issues, right? Remember, like 1 out of 5 men suffer from severe anxiety and depression. So toxic masculinity can lead to mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. This is because toxic masculinity often discourages men from seeking help or expressing their emotions, leading to feelings of isolation, shame, and inadequacy, right? So I don't feel adequate because I'm not, as a man, I'm not supposed to show weakness. I'm not supposed to, to share my feelings too much. Um, and I think that's why it's always important as a man to be able to have a brotherhood, right? A group of guys that you can come to and share what's really happening, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And not to keep them inside. Because remember, that's what the old view of what it means to be a man was, and we're trying to change that and show what healthy masculinity looks like. Two, relationship problems, right? Toxic masculinity can also lead to relationship problems, right? Like the 1 out of 3 kids under the age of 18 doesn't have a dad at home is because separation, right? But did you know that most divorce actually is initiated by the woman and not the husband? Right? And that's because relationship problems, right? Toxic masculinity can lead to relationship problems because it's often promote unhealthy and abusive behavior such as control, jealousy, and emotional manipulation. Um, for lack of, sorry, three, lack of emotional intelligence. So toxic masculinity can often discourage men from expressing their emotions or developing emotional intelligence, leading to a lack of empathy and inability to connect with others on an emotional level. With kind of with us, my wife and I, changing this way of raising men. Our one of our boys, that had it's a little bit more challenging for him to express himself, right? Like he's good at writing it, but he's not good at expressing it verbally. We had to go to that place of coming in and listing the top 10 feelings, right? And asking him, okay, like which one, right? Because that is important, right? For you to be able to know those different feelings, then it's easier for you to be able to express how you feel, and then we can work back on like what triggered that feeling, and then we can have more of um, this healthy masculinity, right? Where I'm not afraid to express how I feel, not just what I'm thinking, but how I'm actually feeling, right? And so that has helped him a lot because now he can say, when he's at this place, we can ask him like, okay, what do you feel? And he can go through his kind of 10 words, knowing that obviously there's more inside of each one of them, right? But he can go there and say, hey, I feel sad, right? And we can figure out, okay, why do you feel sad? And, work down versus there you can tell he's frustrated, but he doesn't know how to actually express it, right? And you have men like that as well because they don't know how to express it. They only live in this place of anger or anger, sadness, and then maybe love and excitement. Like there we go. That's the that's the ladder of emotions. Because they haven't investigated like what are some of the other emotions you can have. and because sometimes if I only have one emotion, one way of expressing myself, then I'm stuck in this loop. Versus if I have many words that I can use to express how I feel, then it's easier to not be stuck in this place. So these are just a few of the effects of like toxic masculinity, and it's important to recognize that these effects can again vary depending on the individual's experiences and circumstances. So right, so that concludes our part 1 of 2 of embracing healthy masculinity, redefining what it means to be a man. So next time we will continue with part 2, and part 2 is going to be about the healthy masculinity side of it, right? The benefits, the role of a healthy masculinity in society. We're going to look at the relationship between healthy masculinity and mental health, as well as like how do we foster healthy masculinity? Education and awareness, role models, redefining traditional gender roles. Then we're going to recap the importance of healthy masculinity and how to move forward. So I hope you guys will stick around, because I think this is one of the most important topics that we can talk about, especially as men raising men, right? Or son raising sons. So all my guys out there, I think this is an important episode for you to really listen to and apply, as you're raising your sons, and maybe also self-evaluate, right? To see, are you trending more on this toxic masculinity, or are you trending more on this healthy masculinity, right? I know for myself, I had a huge gap inside of the suppression of feelings, right? Because I'm somebody that's naturally very competitive, and so I had to really evaluate that side and understand its importance, and being okay saying like, hey, I don't know how to, but that does not mean that I'm not doing the work, because it's important, right? So hope you stick around, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.